Matthew Kelly has dedicated his life to helping people and organizations become the best version of themselves. Born in Sydney, Australia, he began speaking and writing in his late teens while he was attending business school. Since that time, over 4 million people have attended his seminars and presentations in more than 50 countries. Today, Mr. Kelly is an internationally acclaimed speaker, author, and business consultant. His books have been published in more than 25 languages, have appeared on the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and U.S. Today bestseller lists. And he has sold more than 10 million copies. Mr. Kelly is also a partner at Floyd Consulting, a Chicago-based management consulting firm. His clients include Pepsi, Procter & Gamble, FedEx, HSBC, the Department of Defense, McDonald's, U.S. Bank, 3M, Ernst & Young, the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Air Force, Michelin, and more than 50 other Fortune 500 countries. He's also the founder of the Dynamic Catholic Institute, a Cincinnati-based nonprofit organization whose mission is to re-energize the Catholic Church in America by developing world-class resources that inspire people to rediscover the genius of Catholicism. His personal interests include the long ball hitting of golf, where he often hits off the street and concrete structures. He likes to play piano, literature, spirituality, and spending time with his lovely wife, Maggie, and his 3 lovely children, Walter, Isabel, and Harry. In recognition of his significant contributions to the Catholic community and his alignment with Xavier's values and mission, Xavier University is honored to present Matthew Kelly with the honorary degree of Doctor of Humanities.
President Graham, the Board of Trustees, faculty, graduates, parents, families, friends, good morning, and congratulations to the Xavier class of 2014. This is my advice. Learn to take the long view. Most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in a decade. Whatever it is you wish to succeed at in life, personally or professionally, few skills will serve you better than the ability to take the long view. I learned to take the long view, and I say learn to take the long view because it is something that has to be learned. We are constantly surrounded by a short-view mentality in today's culture, and long-view thinking must be practiced constantly so that it can take a deep root in our lives and become an ingrained habit. Otherwise, on the day we reach for it, we will be simply grasping at air. What is the long view? It's a particular brand of wisdom that takes into account the effects that something will have not only in the present, but far into the future. The Native American people of the Iroquois have a way of making decisions that powerfully demonstrates the long view. When faced with a decision, they ponder this question: how will this proposed course of action affect our people 7 generations from today? It's a beautiful example of taking the long view, one that is in stark contrast to the short view thinking that we find too often in our own political leaders. When was the last time any of our political leaders considered how their decisions today would affect our people more than 100 years from now? And as they are our representatives, we must conclude that they are entrenched in the short view because we, the people, are entrenched in the short view. Certainly, there have been plenty of self-interested politicians throughout the history of the world, but ultimately, if enough of the voters demand that our political leaders take the long view, they will adopt it, even if only out of self-interest. The list of people who have succeeded because they took the long view is long and varied. Henry Ford, Leonardo da Vinci, the founding fathers, Alexander the Great, Augustine, Walt Disney, Orville and Wilbur Wright, Albert Einstein, John the 23rd, Mozart, Van Gogh, Charles Dickens, Galileo, Socrates, Christopher Columbus, Mother Teresa, Michael Jordan, Winston Churchill, Steve Jobs, Bono, and of course, Ignatius of Loyola and Francis Xavier, to name but a few. Most people are fascinated with the success that taking the long view leads to, but few people adopt the long view for themselves. Take as an example the investing philosophy of Warren Buffett. While I may disagree with Mr. Buffett on a great many things, I cannot dispute his success as an investor. He is arguably the greatest investor of all time, and at the very core of his philosophy, we find the long view. Since 1964, Berkshire Hathaway, under the leadership of Buffett, has outperformed the S&P 500. In fact, it has never underperformed the S&P 500 over any 5-year interval. If you invested $10,000, if you had the opportunity to invest $10,000 with Mr. Buffett in 1964 and the discipline to keep that money invested, in 2012 you would have been in possession of $58 million. Buffett takes the long view, and his success is astonishing. But the average investor owns no shares in Berkshire Hathaway. The average financial professional knows very little about Warren Buffett and his philosophy, and almost never recommends his stock. The subject of investing leads us to an immensely practical example of how taking the long view can have an incredible impact on your life. You will soon begin your first full-time job. When will you start saving for retirement? Retirement may seem far off, but taking the long view means taking the far off seriously. At 65 years of age, the average American has a net worth of only $66,000. A staggering 63% of Americans in retirement today are completely dependent on Social Security, family, friends, relatives, and charity. If from your 22nd birthday you save $3 a day, every day, until your 65th birthday, you will have saved $47,000. If that money is invested at a compound rate of 9.77%, the market average, historically, on your 65th birthday, you'll be in possession of $632,000. But here's the thing. Most people don't take the long view, and most people put off saving for retirement. Returning to the example, if instead of beginning at 22, you wait until you're 30 and everything else remains the same, you'll retire not with $632,000, but $293,000. Wait until 40, and you'll retire with a meager $108,000. Learn to take the long view, and learn to take the long view now. As you make your way through your career, the question of compensation will dominate 1,000 conversations. Gather any group of intelligent people together and ask them, what determines compensation? What determines how much you will get paid? You will get all the usual answers: education, experience, past performance, networking, market forces, the ability to negotiate, and others. But almost every time this question is raised, one of the greatest determinants of compensation is completely missing from the list. Your compensation will be massively impacted by the period of time that you take responsibility for. Not the period of time you're given responsibility for, but the period of time you take responsibility for. Consider the compensation structure at the McDonald's Corporation. It is somebody's job to get you through the drive-thru in 3 minutes. The period of time they are responsible for, 3 minutes. Compensation, minimum wage, or $7.95 an hour here in the state of Ohio this morning. There's a shift manager. That person is responsible for 8 hours. Compensation, twice minimum wage, or $15 an hour. There's a store manager responsible for delivering the monthly results. Period of time, 1 month. Compensation, 3 times minimum wage, or roughly $25 an hour. There's a franchise owner who tends to focus on the annual results. Compensation, $120 an hour, or 17 times minimum wage, or roughly $250,000 a year. And then there is the CEO of McDonald's Corporation, responsible for working out what McDonald's is doing 20 years from now. Compensation, last year, $25 million, or roughly 359 times minimum wage, or $3,000 an hour, every hour of every day, even when he's asleep. Few things will impact your compensation or the trajectory of your career like the period of time you spend your energy thinking about. So whether it is your job or not, spend 15 minutes a day, every day, thinking about what your organization should be doing 10 years from now. And while you're at it, spend 15 minutes a day thinking about what you want to be doing 10 years from now. Develop the habit of thinking far into the future. This is how we learn to take the long view. And the long view has been all around you here at Xavier University. It is one of the reasons that this place is set apart. And in a world where instant gratification isn't fast enough anymore, the need for places dedicated to the long view has never been greater. Xavier is an oasis of the long view. During your blink of an eye stay here, the campus has been erupting all around you. Every brick in each of these new buildings is a testament to the long view. The leaders of this community have asked, how can we make the Xavier experience even more powerful for students in the future? The long view has been all around you here at Xavier University because it is at the core of the Jesuit way. The training of a Jesuit requires more than a decade of prayer and study. This alone is testament that the long view is valued. Most organizations spend most of their time, effort, energy, and resource thinking about today and yesterday, obsessed with solving yesterday's problems and putting out today's fires. Ignatius began with a long view vision. He was not interested in short view thinking. He was committed to building a foundation that would empower great men and women to achieve great things for hundreds of years to come. More than 500 years later, you are the men and women he is empowering today to go out and accomplish great things, just as he empowered Xavier. Everything good you have experienced here at Xavier is the fruit of the long view, just as anything bad that you have experienced here at Xavier is the result of the short view. But what makes the long view thinking of Ignatius and Xavier different from the long view thinking of so many other men and women that our world points to and invites us to admire? Many men and women throughout history are able to look 50 years into the future, 100 years into the future, or even 1,000 years into the future. But the long view thinking of Ignatius and Xavier extended into eternity. If you learn to take the long view, you will find yourself in possession of two of life's most precious commodities: patience and generosity. Taking the long view teaches us to be patient, and all of life is better for a patient person. Patience will pay immeasurable dividends in your career, marriage, parenting, health and well-being, personal finances, and in your spiritual journey. You see, life is relationships, and the virtue of patience is the essence of successful relationships. For two patient people will always have a better relationship than two impatient people. Patience is the fruit of taking the long view. The opposite of patience is to be frustrated, agitated, intolerant, irritable, restless, and impatient. Taking the long view also liberates us from selfishness and counsels us to be generous. Great lives belong to men and women who see life as a generosity contest. Decide right now, here, today, to live a life of staggering generosity. Astonish the people who cross your path with your generosity. There is no better way to bring Christianity to life. Generosity is also the fruit of taking the long view. The opposite of generosity is to be greedy, mean, selfish, stingy, and fearful. It is patience that allows us to find God in all things. And it is generosity that sets us free to be men and women for others. We are all the beneficiaries today of Ignatius' staggering generosity. We are all the beneficiaries today of Xavier's staggering generosity. How well do you know these men whom you know so much to, who you owe so much to, as you leave here today? And what is it that they would want to whisper into your ear this morning? That's the question I pondered in preparing to speak with you. I have thought long and hard, and I think they would want to pull you close and whisper into your ear, resist the temptation of short-term gain and instant gratification, and learn to take the long view in all things. But how do we learn to take the long view? What is required to take the long view? What price does the long view ask of us? That's why it's so unpopular. Delayed gratification. The long view has but one teacher, the intentional postponement of gratification. So as you begin the next phase of your journey, I ask you, are you willing to delay gratification? Nothing will influence your success at anything more than your ability or your willingness to delay gratification. You simply cannot succeed at anything worthwhile without it. So get really good at delaying gratification. Hone the skill. Become a master of this ability, and you will become a master of yourself. Have a glass of water when you'd rather have a Coke. Force yourself to work out when you'd rather not. Wait 5 minutes before doing something you want to do right now. Have the fish when you're craving the steak. Take the long way home. Delayed gratification is the admission price success demands. The constant denial of self in small things will give you clarity of heart, mind, and soul to see the present for what it really is and the future for what it still can be. We read in Proverbs, where there is no vision, the people will perish. And people are perishing all around us in society today. Perishing in violence, poverty, abuse, selfishness, addiction, loneliness, hopelessness, and exploitation. Our self-destructive addiction to the short view is impeding our ability to develop a sustainable vision for ourselves, our families, our communities, our nations, and the world. So this is my advice. Learn to take the long view. Learn to take the long view. You see, in a land where there are no musicians, in a land where there are no storytellers and teachers and poets, in a land where there are no men and women of vision and leadership, in a land where there are no legends, saints, and champions, in a land where there are no dreamers, the people of that land will most certainly perish. But you and I, we are the music makers. We are the storytellers, the teachers, and the poets. We are the men and women of vision and leadership. We are the legends, the saints, and the champions. And we are the dreamers of the dreams. May God bless you with prayerful spirits, peaceful hearts, and an unwavering commitment to the long view. And may your lives be filled with love, laughter, and dreams come true. Thank you, and God bless you.